Hi, Brian. Thanks
Hi.
for coming to chat to me today. I wanted to ask you, first of all, I understand that you're a vegan.
Yes.
So, what is veganism?
Veganism is a lifestyle that, to me, it means different things to different people, but to me, it means the least possible harm that can be done. To most people, it means no animal products in food or clothing or for entertainment or testing on products, uh, and that is living by vegan principles.
So, what's the difference then between veganism and vegetarianism, for example?
Well, vegetarians, there's a lot of different terms like pescatarian. Some vegetarians think eating chicken's okay, but vegetarian is more selective. It's not eating meat. Some of them eat seafood, but they do eat dairy and eggs and cheese, which do include as much harm, if not more, than the meat that's produced as well. So, as an ethical vegan, vegetarianism would be looked at more as a stepping stone to veganism.
So, you use the term ethical veganism. So, what's ethical veganism?
There's different reasons people go vegan or vegetarian, and some people go vegan as a way of losing weight, health, looking better, global warming. There's humanitarian reasons. They're all good reasons. Um, but the ethical vegan, the moral vegan, goes vegan because of the principle of doing the least amount of harm possible to sentient beings.
Okay. And are you an ethical vegan or are you a vegan for other reasons?
I'm an ethical vegan. Even if it was bad for you, it just so happens to be good for you and better for you. So that's kind of like the icing on the cake. But even if it was bad for you, I would still be vegan.
Hmm. And why did you become vegan?
I became vegan because I love animals. I know everyone says that, but I just don't believe in causing harm to other beings. Inherent in all the food industry and the clothing industry and the products and the entertainment is cruelty to living sentient beings, no different than the dogs I grew up with in my house. So it just didn't jive with the way I felt. I was compassionate about other things
Hmm.
in my life. My actions didn't mirror how I felt or what I said.
Is there one thing, I don't want to get into too much detail, but is there one or maybe a few things that you learned about the treatment of animals in maybe the food industry that kind of compelled you to go vegan? Because you've been talking about cruelty, and I just imagine that cruelty is, killing a chicken for food, right? Or is there more to it than that?
There's more to it. There's different ways of killing the animals. Some people argue about humane slaughter and organic and free range and all of those things. 99% of the food that's in all the stores we eat are at these industrialized factories that do it in an assembly line manner, which is so incredibly brutal and essentially torture to beings that feel pain and emotion the same way that dogs do, and arguably the same way we do. Pain the same way we do, definitely. And so, any being that can suffer, I don't want to participate in that. And even if someone said I can supply you with a lifetime of meat and eggs from these free range farms, in the end, it's still taking the life of a being that wanted to live without that being's permission. And I think if they communicated the same way we communicate and spoke our language, they would voluntarily give up their lives so we can have lunch.
Yeah. But what's the difference then between vegetarianism and veganism? I mean, isn't vegetarianism not eating meat? So doesn't that stop harm to animals?
It stops harm to some animals. All these industries are intertwined. The dairy industry is arguably the cruelest industry. The dairy industry supplies all the calves, the baby cows for the veal industry. The veal industry, which a lot of people refuse to eat because they recognize it's cruel, would not exist without the dairy industry. It's where they get their baby cows from.
What do you mean? Can you explain a little bit? I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, in order for a cow, like any other being on the planet to produce milk,
Mm.
it has to be pregnant. And you can argue that the dairy industry and refraining from eating dairy is also like a feminist issue, because the cows are essentially raped. They're forced to be pregnant over and over and over again every day of the year for their entire lives.
Yeah.
And then after a day or two, or almost immediately, their baby's taken from them, and this traumatic process recurs over and over and over again. And those baby cows are often, most of them, the male ones, the ones that won't grow up to be dairy cows, are sent to veal farms. The dairy cows continue to suffer until they're slaughtered, when they can't produce as much milk anymore. And they're not milked, they're hooked up to machines to their udders to be milked. So the dairy industry is pretty awful, and it's the same, cheese incorporates all these ingredients, so cheese is tied into it. And the egg industry, they're not just hens that walk around laying eggs. They're same way in the factories, and all the male chicks that are born are of no use to them, because they're not of the same species to be grown for chicken to eat. And they keep the females to lay more eggs. The males are tossed into a grinder alive, or put in a trash bag and suffocated. So these industries are just all very cruel, and the cheaper it is, the crueler it is. And for these companies, it's about bottom lines. So.
Wow. Have you heard? We're in the class, in this religious studies class, we're learning about Jainism. Have you heard of Jainism and maybe ahimsa?
I've heard of Jainism. I think a lot of vegans look up to the Jains.
Really?
Because they just, from what I understand, I don't, the students probably know a lot more about it than I do at this point. But
I hope they do.
Causing the least amount of violence possible, least amount of harm to other beings as possible.
Yeah.
Ahimsa I've heard of because of a lot of vegans sometimes will just use that word to describe how they live their life.
Yeah. And
of nonviolence.
Yeah. And Jainism is, of course, a kind of at the least religious philosophy, or as we would coin it in Western terms, a religion. Is veganism a religion also? Does it have any similar?
No, veganism's not a religion.
So in your opinion, why is it not a religion? What makes it not a religion?
That's an interesting question. I think it's not a religion because it's about ethical and moral standards. I think anybody from any religion can be vegan. It's based on, honestly, to me and to most vegans, it's a moral baseline. It's like, why doesn't someone that, and this might sound a little straightforward and harsh, but why doesn't someone that believes, if I don't believe in murder, if I don't believe in rape, if I don't believe in unnecessary violence, would those collective principles be considered a religion? I mean, I don't think so. I think they're just kind of moral baselines, maybe we should all live by. But, it just happens to be incorporated in, I guess, religions like Jainism, because they see that if they're preaching nonviolence, it doesn't mean just to man. It means to all beings that can suffer.
Okay. And when you said that it's a kind of the moral and ethical baseline is no harm. I noticed that you didn't just say no harm to living beings, but you said the least amount of harm. So I wonder if you could give me your opinion on the following. Do you think that Jainism is a kind of idealized philosophy? I mean, is it possible to cause no harm to all living creatures?
I don't think it's possible to cause no harm. I think the very idea of civilization and bringing in products from outside of our community entails harm. I think it's almost impossible to cause no harm. But to cause the least amount of harm possible is very possible, and actually I think pretty easy. I mean, there's difficulties of convenience, where to shop to get groceries and stuff, but I wouldn't consider that really hard. A lot of the vegan products, some of the vegan, any product, you can argue, when you raise crops for even lettuce or whatever, causes harms to the animals in the ground that bring that those vegetables for the meals and stuff like that. But that's very different than a slaughterhouse, a factory that breeds billions of animals a year and slaughters them in horrible ways.
So the idea is not to remove all harm because you can't, but to do the least amount of harm possible. Because some people would say that it is an idealized, and also that Jainism is an idealized religion. And so what's the point, Like, what's the point if we can't eliminate all harm?
I think that's a very all or nothing attitude, because it's like saying just because I can't eliminate all harm, that doesn't absolve me from doing the best I can to cause the least amount of harm. It's like, you drove over animals in your car, or your car was used, and in the products, some animals are harmed or whatever. It's like, well, then screw it. I might as well just eat all the animals I can and do it. I don't think it works that way. If it did, the world would be a lot worse than it is.
And you've been vegan for how long?
About 9 years.
9 years, that's a long time. And you live in Los Angeles, obviously.
Only for the last year.
Okay. So how difficult is it to be a vegan in Los Angeles or anywhere else in the world?
I would argue being a vegan in Los Angeles is the easiest place in the world. It's kind of like the hub of veganism, animal advocacy, animal rights, and just amazing, some of the top vegan restaurants and grocery stores in the world. In general, overall, being vegan, there's matters of difficulty, but it's like if you're allergic to a product, it's like, oh my God, I have to go find new products that I'm not allergic to. But as soon as you find them, you don't really have to think about it anymore. You found what you go to eat and buy, and it's kind of the same thing. And luckily, it's all healthy. Most of it's healthy. You can get vegan junk food too, but luckily, most of it's healthy and readily available, even online. And it causes no harm, and that's the least amount of harm possible. And that's the best part. And I'm a vegan that before these 8.5 years ate meat and cheese almost every meal. So it's not like I don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
I loved it. I ate it, but literally weeks later, I started to lose the taste for it.
Did you have an epiphany moment, or was it a gradual process of change, or what made you vegan?
I had bouts of vegetarianism.
Yeah.
Vegetarian for a year, went back to eating meat and different things. Seeing videos and things like that of what goes on in slaughterhouses changed me. But that click, that internal thing that switches, that makes people kind of morally repulsed, because people don't you miss eating meat and stuff like that. And at this point in my life, I have a moral repulsion to it.
Okay.
Like, I didn't stop eating meat because it didn't taste good. Like, all these things taste great. That's why they're so popular. But when I'm morally repulsed by it, you can't pay me to eat it. And so there's that, and then that type of click where it's like, I'm restricted. I'm on a restricted diet, and I can't eat something. I don't look at it that way at all. Not even 1%. I look at it as like, I'm privileged to not participate in that. And I don't know what makes that turn inside someone.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this isn't a question, it's just an aside of me philosophizing off the cuff. But it's interesting how, in India, the Jains, and obviously there's Jains from a variety of socioeconomic statuses, but, some of the poorest people literally in the world are vegan. And in the industrialized West, in Los Angeles, some of, I guess, the richest people in the world are also vegan. There's a common connection about what's right and what's wrong morally.
Yeah, and it also kind of goes to show you that it's not more expensive, which a lot of people think it is.
Yeah.
It's actually, basic foods that are vegan are less expensive. It's why, world hunger could be solved if we stop feeding all the grain and the vegetarian vegan products to the animals we eat, because it's like 5 to 1, or it's an insane amount of food it takes to just rear 1 pound of beef. It could feed the world. These are less expensive and intensive and products that require less resources to make.
Sounds like there's a lot of good byproducts from being a vegan, like your health and the environment, but that overall your motivation is the single, I guess, key tenet that you don't want to harm as any more animals than you need to, or sentient beings than you need to. Is that right, or am I off track?
No, that's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Yay, I get an A.
Yeah, there you go.
So before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you, do you have any suggestions for resources like books, media, if maybe some of the students are interested in learning more about veganism, or even some of the things that you watch that maybe changed your opinion of the industry?
Well, what changed my whole opinion, or actually one of the tools that I use to show people, because a lot of times people ask me that are vegan, like, what can I show my family member to make? Is a video on YouTube. It's called From Farm to Fridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's narrated by James Cromwell, who was
Okay.
the actor, the farmer in Babe, that movie.
Really?
He actually went vegan after filming that with all the animals. But
Filming Babe or
filming Babe,
Farm to
filming Babe,
Farm,
yeah.
Farm to Fridge, right? Did you?
From Farm to Fridge.
Okay.
It's 11 minutes. It's on YouTube. It goes over all the industries of food.
Is it graphic?
It's graphic, but I mean, if I'm going to eat it, the least I can do is watch it. I think it's the least amount of respect I can show to the beings that are dying for it, rather than being behind closed doors. It's just like, they need to be seen, I think. And for a more extensive look at all the industries, entertainment, clothing, cosmetics, testing, everything, Earthlings is an incredible, I think Earthlings.com actually has the full movie for free.
Okay.
Gary Francione's website has answers to all the frequently asked questions.
Who is he?
Gary Francione is an animal rights lawyer out of New Jersey, and he's written a lot of books on animal rights.
Okay.
And there's so many books out there. And obviously, however you view PETA, as an organization, their resources are amazing. So there's a lot of like vegetarian starter things, and they have lists of companies that do test on animals and don't. So we live in a time where everything's just laid out there for you.
Okay.
So it makes it simple.
Well, thanks very much for giving us your time.